Hey, welcome back for another episode of Porn Brain Rewire the podcast. The video can be found on YouTube. I'm Dr. Trish Leigh, and today I'm really excited to debunk and demystify the 6 most common myths about porn use. I've been dying to record this episode. It's been trapped in my journal for a really long time because I want to tell you today what you need to hear about porn opposed to what you want to hear about porn. And that's the layout for today. We're not going to do my typical 1, 2, 3, but stay with me because, as always, at the end of this episode, I am going to give you your brain hack strategy for the day so that you can quit porn for good and ride off into the sunset with a honey that you have a lot of actual sex with. So stay with me, okay? All right, so let's dig into the 6 things you want to hear about porn and the 6 things you need to hear. Okay, number 1 is that porn is good for you. I know so many men that I work with, they want to hear porn is fine for me. But the science shows that porn damages your brain and it impacts your life in such negative ways. There's no denying it. And I've stopped presenting the science here, primarily because I would always forget to upload the documents that went along with it. And I established a heckler, if you're out there still, a heckler out there who'd always be like, yo, Trish, you forgot the upload again. And I'm like, oh, yeah, yes, I did. But I thought to myself too, Fight the New Drug is a nonprofit organization. Follow them on Instagram. I always share their posts. I'm hardly ever on social media, but when I am, I'm sharing Fight the New Drug's posts because they post a lot of the science there and they name the studies. So 2 of us don't need to be doing that is what I thought. That's what they do. What I do is I help men stop watching porn. So together we're a good team. So if you want to know the science, go over to Fight the New Drug. They're always citing it and you'll find it there. There's also another website that's called The Truth About Porn, which it lists all the newest scientific studies. So it's there for the taking online. I'm going to show up here and report it to you because it's my mission to empower you, to educate you and inspire you to leave porn behind and get on purpose in your real life, get on purpose in your work, in your hobbies, and in your relationships. So, further ado, I'm not going to tell you the studies' names that I'm referencing here. They're available to you online. But back to the point is that porn is not good for you. It's bad for you. It damages your brain. We know that the younger you are, if you're exposed to pornography, basically the more it lights up the reward center and tolerance building can begin at an earlier age. We know that that also desensitizes the reward center in the midbrain, making it so you want to go back to porn more and more. So we know there's so many negative effects neurologically. And then we know that those neurological brain performance pattern effects, we know that they fall out as changes and negative impact in how your mind functions in terms of mental health and cognition, which is thinking, and in terms of how your body functions physically. Number 1 way is arousal dysfunction, which can lead to anxiety and depression, and sexual arousal dysfunction that leads to erectile dysfunction, premature and delayed ejaculation. Porn messes with your brain, your mind, and your body. There is nothing good about it that deserves an exclamation point because it's just true. So porn is not good for you. Porn, in fact, is damaging and it's very bad for you. Okay, so myth number 1, debunked. I'm feeling good. We on a roll right now. Okay, so I also wanted to share with you, I have to check my notes so I stay on track here, but I also wanted to share with you that we know that in the International Classification of Diseases, which is presented by the World Health Organization, that in the most recent edition, compulsive sexual behavior disorder is named as a neurological disorder that now is listed under compulsive behavioral problems. Pornography consumption is the number way that shows up. I call it hypersexuality. So not only is porn not good for you, it's creating hypersexuality. And I wanted you to know that because we're going to dig into that in numbers 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So it's important to kind of set the stage. So if you feel like you have a quote unquote high libido, that usually is hypersexuality, meaning your brain is looking for a dopamine hit from sex or sexuality all over the place. You'll be lusting and objectifying women in the world. You'll feel the pull back to pornography. You might have urges and cravings that you think are sexual libido, but it's actually your brain going back to the new drug. That's why Fight the New Drug named themselves that name, because we are considering pornography the newest and most dangerous drug that's out there. So those urges and cravings, they're not actually sexual in nature. What they are is a dopamine dependency. So again, porn is not good for you, and it's creating this ripple effect in your life. Okay, let's move on to number 2, because I promised myself that we will make this a short episode because last week's was 52 minutes. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Okay, porn is fine in moderation. And I hear that a lot. Okay, my porn habit got out of control in the past, but isn't it okay for me to go back to porn in moderation? So when we think about porn in that way, the answer is no. Porn is not fine in moderation. And we're going to put a caveat, but this is for most people, especially if you have had a compulsive pornography habit in the past, because we're going to liken it to alcoholism just to make it easy to think about. When an alcoholic decides to get sober and to leave alcohol behind, that pull to alcohol is there. And it has to do with dopamine also. So that pull is there. So if a person goes back to alcohol, and in this case, if your brain goes back to porn, it will tend to binge and tend to want those high levels of dopamine that it used to get. So moderation is not usually a thing for people who have had a compulsive porn habit because their brain is looking for those high levels of dopamine. So I've heard this so many times. It's the hijacker in your brain. You might tell yourself, oh, I'm just going to test myself. That's the hijacker talking. If you hear the hijacker tell you, I'm just going to test myself and see if I can just look at a little porn, you might be able to pull it off that time, but it usually leads you to the slippery slope back into a full-blown compulsive porn habit. And that is not what I want for you. I want you to put porn behind and to find loving and pleasurable and awesome sexual experiences in your real life with a balanced life that also provides joy, happiness, pleasure, and connection, not sexually, but sexually also, but just overall. Okay, so that's number 2. Porn's fine in moderation. That is not true. We also know that there is a 2016 study that shows that 46.9% of porn users demonstrate escalation behaviors. So it goes back to speak about what I just talked about, that, going back in moderation, your brain has already built tolerance, especially if we're building off of the other study that I talked about, that if your brain found porn when you were young and you needed it for self-soothing and you ultimately ended up getting very high levels of dopamine in your young, underdeveloped brain, your brain is at very high risk for escalation and for not being able to use porn in moderation. So again, not a thing. Porn in moderation cannot be pulled off. It is not healthy. We'll just liken it to heroin in moderation. Not a good idea. Okay, number 3 is a really good one. Let's dig into this one because I'm excited to share it with you. Porn spices up my sex life. I've heard a lot of people say that. Porn, I'm learning some good moves here in porn. First of all, porn is unhealthy sexuality, not healthy sexuality. The moves, quote unquote, that you are learning are not leading you towards a healthy sex life. In fact, those moves are leading you away. We know there's a lot of science that shows that there is an increase in objectification and dehumanization of other people, mostly men of women, meaning that if you watch porn, women are treated violently. They're treated like objects for a man's pleasure. So then now in the world, you are actually conditioned to not see women as human as you would have if you didn't watch porn. Same thing for violence. You become desensitized to sexual violence. There's studies that show that men who consume porn are more likely to commit sexual violence. And if they see it being committed, they're less likely to intervene because your brain has normalized that sexual arousal being connected to violence and acts against women. We know this. So, is it spicing up your sex life? Probably not. It's making you objectify your partner, use that partner for high levels of dopamine, not for serotonin and oxytocin, which are the neurotransmitters of connection and of happiness. It's just to get the biggest dopamine hit. Watch yourself during your sexual experiences and think to yourself, am I just trying to get a big dopamine hit? Am I going for the 3-ring circus that gets me the most pleasure? Am I not necessarily worried about happiness or connection? We also know there's many studies that show that porn use increases the percentage of sexual dysfunction while it decreases sexual satisfaction. So let me say that in another way. You're less satisfied with your partner, you're less satisfied with your real world sexual experiences, and you have sexual performance issues like erectile dysfunction. That is not spicing up your sex life. It's crushing it. And you're just not connecting the breadcrumbs back to your porn habit, most likely. Start connecting those breadcrumbs. It's really, really important. So, okay. Let me see what else we've got here. In another study, it was found, in a study over 6 years, it was found that porn use was in fact the number one factor correlated with the fact that a marriage would suffer. So the number one thing that is going to make it so your marriage suffers is porn. So if you're married or if you're thinking about getting married, I want you to know that porn does not spice up your sex life. It makes you less satisfied with your partner, and it has the highest likelihood of killing your relationship. Yes, some people have accused me of hyperbole, but I'm emphatic. I'm passionate. I'm not making this stuff up. The science is here to support it. So if you feel like porn's impacting your relationship, you're right. And if your partner tells you, I don't want you watching porn, and you secretly know you can't stop, and we're going to get there to number 6, but if you know you can't stop and you know it's probably not a great idea that you continue, you need help. That's why I developed my 90-day program. You need help. I've actually developed a high-level in-person program that gets you all the tools and strategies that you need, and you can work with me personally because people need people. So I'm making myself and my coaches available for that, and I'm getting it to hopefully reasonable pricing for most people because I want to help you succeed. I want you to leave porn behind. It will be worth the investment of your time, money, and energy. You will get back the dividends a millionfold into your future. So I want you to know that. Okay. Now, let us move on. I think we covered just about everything I wanted to cover there. Let's move on to number 4. Number 4 is that this is the myth. Number 4 is that porn does not impact your interactions and how you approach women, whether if you're in a relationship or if you're not in a relationship and you're looking for a honey. I work with so many single men, and they tell me, and that's why we're going to crush this myth right now. They tell me it makes it so that I have difficulty approaching women. I feel like I'm transparent and they can see what I'm doing, in the darkness of my room. I feel shame. That's shame. But we've already covered it actually does change your interaction style with them because you're likely objectifying them more and seeing them kind of as a piece of meat, a body that is, for your pleasure, for your taking, for your liking. It does change the way that men interact with women. So then they get a healthy women. Healthy women will not like being approached that way. So if you're in an unhealthy sexual position in your mind and your body, compulsive sexual behavior disorder in your brain, and you approach an emotionally healthy woman, she's not going to take highly to the way you're interacting, because porn does change the way you interact. But it'll also give you social anxiety, and it also gives you shame. So if you feel like you're having difficulty connecting with the ladies, like one of my clients says, it's true. You are. And the reason is because porn is impacting your brain, mind, and body. So we're gonna bust that myth. Porn's not impacting those interactions with women, because yes, it is. And then also what happens to married men is a married man who loves and adores his wife, who might be absolutely drop dead gorgeous, is out in the world checking out every other woman that walks by. That's going to create a huge splinter in your relationship. So I want you to know it's impacting your interaction with your bride, with your mate, with your partner in crime, because your eyes are looking for dopamine hits from objectification and lusting in the world. It, in fact, changes the way you interact with all women. So I want you to know that. Okay. Number 5 is porn is not related to all of these conditions you might be struggling with. Attention and focus or adult ADHD. Don't even get me started, because so many people I work with have just recently been diagnosed with adult ADHD. And I'm now dubbing it porn-induced ADHD, just like porn-induced erectile dysfunction, PIED. We're going to be talking about in October on this podcast, we're going to be talking about porn-induced ADHD. ADHD is a neurodevelopmental disorder, which means you would have had it as a kiddo. You would not have developed it. And there's rare cases that people aren't diagnosed with it. More so than not, people are developing ADHD symptoms from their porn habit, but they're not telling the neuropsychologist about the porn habit, and they're getting an adult ADHD diagnosis and a stimulant to go along with it, which is going to make things worse for you, not better. But we're going to talk about that in October. So that's attention, focus, and ADHD. Another myth is that porn is not related to your anxiety and depression. It, in fact, is. We know that porn use and compulsive sexual behavior disorder creates autonomic nervous system, dysfunction. I'm going to call it dysfunction because it's throwing off those electrical energy patterns in your brain. I can see that on the brain map that I provide for people. I can see how dysfunctional in terms of arousal your brain is. And when you have arousal dysfunctions, you feel anxious because your brain's running too fast. You feel depressed because your brain's running too slow or has lowered its power. So porn, in fact, is at the core of many people's anxiety and definitely their depression. One quick reason, you've probably heard me say this before, is that there's a 4D dopamine cycle associated with porn use. That last D is a dopamine deficit in your life. You no longer get the dopamine from your life that you would if you weren't watching porn. That creates anxiety and depression. This is real. And I know you're not associating your anxiety and depression with porn because it feels good in the moment, but in the moment, it's creating all the other moments where you feel bad. You might not also associate your porn habit with lack of motivation, or you used to love your work and now you feel apathy towards it. You feel ho-hum. You might not associate porn use with feeling angry and irritable. Think dopamine deficit. It's the same. It's the same causality there. You might also not connect the dots with your porn use and your erectile dysfunction. I'm telling you, the dots are real. It's proven by science. So if you struggle with erectile dysfunction, premature ejaculation, or delayed ejaculation, please reach out to me for a consultation or get the QEEG brain assessment. I'll show you in your brain precisely why it's happening. The arousal dysfunction will pop out at you as the color red on your QEEG brain map. That should all be in the green zone. These things are all associated with porn use. Think damage to your brain, damage to your mental health, to your cognition, and to your physical body. This is real. Okay, let's move on to number 6, and then we'll get to your brain hack strategy for the day. Number 6 is I could quit porn if I really wanted to. Now, this one personally breaks my heart because I know how many men try to quit porn and how very difficult it is. So they convince themselves that they don't want to quit porn. And it's not because they don't want to, it's because it's so damn hard. It can be really difficult to leave a dependency. Your brain is dependent upon porn for the way it makes your brain feel from the dopamine release, from the tolerance building, from the escalation of a habit that's probably developed since you were around 10. We might be talking 5 years, we might be talking 10 years, we might be talking decades of dependency on this 4D dopamine cycle of porn. So if you want to quit porn, you totally can, but it might be challenging up front. And I really have been thinking about this because my 90-day digital program is the solution for people who want to tackle porn use by themselves. Get into the 90-day program. It has all the tools, techniques. It teaches you how to use brain training. It's me walking you through lessons every single day for 90 days. If you do that, if you're able to do that by yourself, you will come out 90 days later in a much better position, either completely free from the shackles of porn, or you will understand the last few things that are really challenging for you. You'll be in a different state. And so many people make it through that program by themselves and they rock it out and they move on to a new existence. In that program, I offer quarterly coaching sessions to the group. Zach Carter offers you a personal coaching session. But this is where I'm at lately is I know that there's a lot of people who can't make it through that program by themselves. So I've bundled a lot of my services so that if you want to work with me personally, you basically get one of everything, and then I move your action through it. Also with the help of Zach Carter, who's my lead coach. We're here as a team and we move you through it so that you can get to the other side of this in 90 days. And if you double down with our support, you will get to the other side. And that's the beautiful thing. So if you are interested in support in a smaller way where you do it yourself and we never have to talk, please get into my 90-day program. Check it out at drtrishleigh.com. If you want personal help, I am here for you. We are here for you. It's my mission. This became my job because it's my mission. I want to help you leave porn. I want to prove to you how much better your life can be without it. And I want to be there to see the smile on your face. I just talked to one of my clients about a week and a half ago now. And he's like, I literally can't tell you how much you've changed my life. And we're lining up some of these people to come on the podcast. So we're getting there and we're going to share their stories with you because they are just phenomenal. So, but if you want help, please reach out. You can check out the QEEG Brain Map page under the Personal Neurofeedback Coaching tab. This way, that's the first step in working together. We get your brain mapped. You and I get to spend an hour together going through your whole life situation. It's a situation that can be changed. And we figure out what can be done so I can help move you through all the steps you need to get to the other side of it within 90 days. Okay, now moving on to your brain hack strategy for the day. This is a simple one. Get your notebook out, get your journal out, get your fancy pen out, and I want you to think about these 6 myths. And I want you to think about, is the hijacker convincing you some of these myths are true? So here we go. Number 1 is that porn is good for you. So this, I'm going to do it in a first person. Porn is good for me. I need porn because I have a high libido. We've already debunked that, so I want you to think about it. Number 2, porn's fine in moderation. Has the hijacker tried to convince you of that? Number 3, porn's spicing up my sex life. We've already established that is not true. Number 4 is that if I'm having difficulty with women, porn has nothing to do with it. And we know if you have difficulty with your partner or finding a honey, porn has everything to do with it. Number 5 is that porn is not related to my attention and focus issues, to my ADHD, to my anxiety, to my depression, to my motivation, to my apathy towards my job, to my anger, to my irritability, to my erectile dysfunction. Don't kid yourself. Porn's just completely wrapped up in all of those things. And lastly, number 6 is, if I wanted to quit porn, I really could. I would have done it already. Don't kid yourself. Don't let the hijacker convince you that these things are true, and that's why you're continuing to watch porn. You're likely continuing to watch porn because it's just so damn hard to stop. So get the right help so we can move you through. If you don't want to work with me, that's totally cool, even though I'd love to work with you. So maybe it's not cool. But please find a program that feels good to you. That's the most important thing. They call it the therapeutic alliance. I want you to work with someone who you trust, who you feel has, put together a program. That's why I want you to work with me. I know I put my program together, built on neuroscience and put together on science that makes sense, that uses data, that has steps and strategies and can move you through a process. My Porn Brain Rewire program, it moves you through a process of unwire, rewire, and hardwire. So get into a program that moves you through a comprehensive process to get you to the other side. So if you're interested in any of my programs, please go over to drtrishleigh.com. And until next time, control your brain or it will control you. I'll see you next time on the podcast.